I just want to say, especially if you're a parent, thank you for coming out tonight. And the reason why we invited you as parents to come out tonight, there's something we're trying to do here. It's called the Family Equipping Model of Youth Ministry. And the main idea behind the Family Equipping Model is that as parents, you are the number one disciple makers of your kids. That everything the church does is supplemental to what you do at home to be the main disciple maker of your kids. And you have the hardest job on the planet to raise someone to know God and be in awe of God. And students, you probably have the second hardest job on the planet, being under the authority of someone who doesn't model Jesus perfectly for you. And in saying that, maybe that causes conflict because you have parents who are sinners, you have kids who are sinners trying to follow a perfect God. So tonight we're going to continue our series in Colossians, Jesus is Greater, and I asked Pastor Brian to come and share tonight a message that will probably help both parents and students. So let's give him a hand.
It's awesome to see you all tonight. Thank you for letting me come and share with you. Let me begin by saying this. Every time that I can recall in my life that I disobeyed my parents, it did not turn out well for me. Just be serious. At the end of tonight, I'm going to tell you a story. Actually, I'm going to tell you 3 stories, and they're not about me. They're going to be about my son, Justin. And I talked to Justin today and got his permission to go ahead and share the story of Justin and our relationship. But the situation, this passage that we're going to be looking at, and this is a new clicker, so let me see. Oh, there we go. We're going to be looking at Colossians 3, chapter 20 through 21. Chapter 3, verses 20 through 21. If you have a Bible, you're welcome to turn there, but the scripture will be on the screen. Throughout the Bible, it has always been God's intention, the focal point of his plan is to work through the family. When you think about it, think back to the different families of the Bible. You think of Adam and Eve, it began with a family, right? And then Noah goes into the ark with his what? His family, okay? And then the nation of Israel is actually a nation that comes from a man by the name of Israel, and it's his 12 what? Sons. It's a family, right? So you can see that God's plan from the beginning was to work through the family. And so the family relationship, the family connection, the family is very important. What is it about the family, though, that makes it vital to God's plan? What is it about the family that makes it vital in the completion of God's plan? Well, first of all, parents and grandparents, the family, provide training in adult character. They provide structure to our society. Whether you realize it or not, parents, grandparents, or adults of influence provide direction for you, and they provide and teach you what it means to be a young man or a young woman in American society. Without that, we have chaos. Without that, we have chaos. But see, the family is the structure. The family is where this all comes from. And so, as parents of the home, teach children what it means to be an adult, what it means to be a mature, responsible individual, what it means to be someone that is of character and integrity in society. It undergirds and strengthens our society. So parents, their first part of their role is to obviously provide structure, teach you what it means to be an adult. The second thing that the family does, it provides a spiritual training ground. I don't know if you're going to believe this or not, and you may disagree with it, and that's okay. For parents that are here, this may knock you on your backside. And I know the first time I read it and thought about it did, but do you realize that a child's first understanding or a child's first concept of God comes from typically their father? So the child understands who God is by watching their father. If the father is loving and compassionate, they grow up and have an understanding that, well, God is a loving and compassionate God. If the father is dictatorial with lots of rules and regulations, well, then God becomes a God of rules and regulations. If their father is passive and allows them to do anything that he or she wants, then they believe that God is passive. He really doesn't care. He really doesn't have a concern for my life. He really doesn't need to be involved in my life. He's very passive and hands off. So the spiritual training ground for you begins in the home with your vision of your parents, of those people in authority over you. Exodus 20. You don't have to turn there. We'll put it up here on the screen. But Exodus 20 is the 10 Commandments. There's 10 of them. Obviously, that's why they call them the 10 Commandments, right? Do you know what the first 4 are? Anybody have an idea? The first 4? Give me a general overview of the first 4. Give me one of the first 4. Anybody? Don't worship other. Very good. Very good. You see, because the first 4 deal with and instruct man in how to interact with God. They're what we call vertical. Okay? They underscore and describe and outline the relationship that we are to have with God. We don't have any other gods before Him. We have the Sabbath. We keep it holy. It's a vertical instruction. All right? The second 5, or the 5 through 10, the following 6, they deal with horizontal relationships, how you're supposed to interact with your classmates, how you're supposed to interact with other individuals, people that you don't know, people that you do know, how you're supposed to interact with your parents, how you're supposed to interact with your teachers. You see, so the first 4 tell us how to interact with God, and the next 6 tell us how to interact with each other. But it's interesting because the 5th commandment is honor your father and mother that your days may be long in the land that your God is giving you. Why do you think the first of the commandments that deal with this horizontal relationship between one another, why would God choose to put that one first? Why would He say, okay, now I'm going to tell you how to interact with one another, but before I do that, the very first thing I'm going to tell you before you learn how to interact with one another is you have to respect your parents. You have to honor your parents. See, because God realized that all of the 10 commandments, all of the spiritual training are going to revolve around the parent's instruction to the child. And the child is to honor and respect the parent because the parent is going to be the one to lead them not into idolatry and who God is and how to keep the Sabbath and how not to steal and how to respect other individuals. The parent is going to be the focal point. So when it comes to interpersonal relationship, the first commandment that God lays out is, hey, kids, honor your parents. Adults, honor your parents. Respect your parents. Exodus 2:12 has those 2 words in it, though. The one key word is honor. It means to give respect to give weight to thought to their words. It implies submission, obedience, and openness to their input. That's what honor means. To hold them in a respect, to hold them in a position of awe and respect. The second thing that the passage talks about is to live long in the land. Now, when my dad taught me this passage, what he taught me was, hey, this commandment has a promise to it. That as long as you obey your mom and I, you're going to live a long life. I mean, you might live to be like 80, 85, 90, maybe 100 years old if you obey your parents. That's how my dad taught me this commandment. And while it has some merit to it, that's not exactly what it means. What it means is when collectively children honor their parents, they will live long in the land. That means that the social structures within the community that you live will be undergirded. They will be strengthened. There'll be substance there. That you will live long in the land because you will understand what it means to follow your parents, and you'll understand the difference between right and wrong. You'll have a moral idea. You'll have a moral compass. But the bottom line here is this. When it comes to obeying your parents, the key is here. Protection and prosperity. You see, because the rules and the guidelines that parents provide to you, The rules and guidelines that God outlines in His Word for all of us are given to us out of a heart of love, with the intention to provide protection and prosperity. That by following God's commands, you will receive protection. And by following God's plans, that you will prosper in your life. That's the reason why we have rules. Rules are set to protect as long as they're given out of a heart of love. And so throughout this evening, through the next couple of minutes, keep that in mind. That the rules your parents set out for you, while you may not always understand exactly why they put that rule there, out of a heart of love, it's designed to protect and to help you to prosper. It's always to protect and to help you to prosper. When you read God's Word and it talks to you about the right kind of relationships that you're to have with each other, dating relationships or any type of relationships, the rules that God puts out there are for two purposes. One, to protect you, to protect your heart, protect you physically, but also to help you to prosper. Colossians 3:20 and 21, the passage that we're focusing on, says this: "Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Fathers, do not provoke your children, lest they become discouraged." The word obey there is a very interesting word. The word obey in the Greek means to open a door. To open a door. We'll come back to that. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. It means to open a door. But the passage says, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Fathers, do not provoke your children, lest they become discouraged. Well, how can a father provoke their children to become discouraged? Well, what Paul is talking about here is this. Dads and moms, don't set the expectations so high that the child cannot possibly attain it. Because if you have the expectation too high, you have unrealistic goals and you're expecting perfection and they don't attain it, it's going to frustrate them. It's going to exasperate them. It's going to provoke them and drive them to anger. So before you set the rules, parents, make sure you're thinking it through. Is this attainable for my child? Is this a reasonable expectation for my son or my daughter? Because if you set it too high, or you set it to the point where it's totally unattainable, it's only going to provide frustration and anger. He says, don't provoke them to anger. Ephesians 6:4, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. It kind of dovetails with the previous passage from Colossians. But it's interesting here, he uses two words as he clarifies. He talks to parents about discipline and instruction. I would highly recommend this. Discipline clearly must flow out of love, and it clearly must flow out of set rules and guidelines. So the parent, in my recommendation, sits down and discusses with the child. Here's the rule. And I keep using the word child. You guys forgive me for that. I shouldn't be using child, not here. So what's a better word? Student? Young adult? That's so young. That's so long. Young adults. That's like 3 syllables to say. Oh, anyway, okay. All right. So the parent sits down with the young adults, all right, that are all here, and forms the rules and talks with the young adult about what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable. And so the rules are set. But there needs to be consequences. If the rules are violated, the rules are broken, there needs to be consequences determined. So what we always did, or what we tried to do, is we would sit down with our young adults and say, here's the rule. You got to be in by this time, or you got to go here, or you need to call, whatever. And if you don't do that, then the consequences are this. So that's what Paul's talking about, discipline and instruction. He's talking about setting up the rules and the consequences for those rules to provide discipline and correction, as well as instruction, to explain to the young adult why the rule is the way it is. Why are we setting the rule this way? And what is the rule intended to achieve? Remember, just to review, protection and prosperity, God's rules, God's laws, your parents' rules, their guidelines are intended to provide protection and prosperity. So when a young adult disobeys their parent, why do they do that? And I know none of you have in here, right? So we have to refer to people from outside the room. Since all of you have obeyed your parents, right? No, probably not. So when we in here disobey our parents, why do we do that? What's that? Very good. Selfish ambition. We'll get to that. I'll categorize that under pride. There's probably more responses, and you probably know better than I do, but some of the responses are up here. Well, quite frankly, parents just don't get it. They just don't understand what it's like to be me. They just don't understand what it's like to be a child, to be a young adult in today's culture. They just don't get it. They don't understand. They're too old. They're too far removed from the fact, gee, my parents, they're like 35, 40 years older than I. How could they possibly know what it's like to be a young adult in today's society? They just don't get it. So since they don't get it and they don't understand it, I'm just going to do what I want to do. Another reason as to why is my rules don't match the rules of my friends. My friends, they all get to stay out till 11 o'clock, but I got to be in at 8:15. You know? I'm exaggerating, but you get the point, right? All my friends have these rules and guidelines, but my rules are here. I don't understand why my rules or my ways that my parents have laid out need to be so extreme and so much different than these over here. So I don't get it. Well, since I don't agree, and I think that the majority should rule, right? I mean, if most of my friends are all, have these 11 o'clock curfew, then I should have an 11 o'clock curfew, right? Not necessarily. The third one, there are just too many rules. Listen, trust me, in American culture, we're all about freedom, right? Isn't that what we're all about? We're all about freedom. You choose to do what you want to do. We're free to do what we want to do. No one in our society should be able to tell us what we can do, what we can't do. It's all about freedom. And so that should apply to the family as well. But think about it. Do you really want total freedom riding on the roads? Do you want people to do anything that they want to do? It sounds a little bit like Haiti. Do you really want, let's use a real example. When you come to a red light and it's green and you get to go through, do you want the people in the other direction to stop? Do you? So when you go through the intersection and the light's green for you, do you want the people coming the other way to stop? Yes, you do. You want instruction. You want structure. You want order. You want them to obey the laws. You need to have rules to give guidelines so people don't get hurt. But oftentimes, young adults will say, hey, there's just too many rules. I'm me. I need my freedom. I need to do what I want to do, dress the way I want to dress, live the way I want to live, go where I want to go. And so therefore, parents' rules and instructions are out the window. But really, when it all comes down to is what Mary said back there, pride. I really know what's best for me. I understand, that my parents are 40 plus years old and they've got some more years of experience than I do, but I know what's best for Brian. I know what's best for me, and I know what I should be doing, and I know I'm able to make my own decisions. After all, I'm 13 years old. I've lived 13 years, And so I ought to be able to make my own decisions. I know what's best for me. After all, when I go through the lunch line, I get to make my own choices of whether I want a sloppy Joe or whether I want a hot dog. So I should be able to make my own decisions. We really think that we know what's best for our life. Take, for example, Genesis chapter 3. You know the story, most of you. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field, and the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, did God actually say, you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it. That wasn't what God said. God said not to eat of it. She added that part. You see, the rules really don't apply to me. There's too many of them, and I'm just going to tweak them a little bit because really the serpent is, well, he's got some merit here. I really know what's best for me. I really know what's best for me. Continue with the passage. But the serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die, for God knows when you eat of it, your eyes will be open, and you'll be like God, knowing good and evil. So when the woman saw the tree was good for food, and it was a delight to her eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate, and she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Bottom line is, what you have here is pride. Where is the person screaming to Eve, stop, don't, wake up, that's wrong, don't do it. Adam, where are you? Where is someone to tell her that she's going to screw up her life? See, God built that into the family. They're called parents. And that's one of the reasons why you need to obey parents, because these parents, these people have lived for many years and they see the turns in the road that you may not see. So when you're ready to make that decision because you're looking at something, hey, this looks really good, I think this is the right thing, it's the delight to my eyes, and it's going to be something that I like and it's going to make me smart, parents need to step in and they'll tell you, hey, don't make that decision. That's not a good choice. That's not a wise choice. Colossians 3:20. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. In the original language, it means open the door. So here's what I'm telling you to consider, young adults. I don't know where you're at with your relationship with your parents. I don't know, maybe you're living with someone that isn't a parent. Maybe you have another adult that's over you. Maybe the closest person that you have to give you guidance is in this room sitting in the back. I don't know. But I'm encouraging you to open the door to them. I'm encouraging you to listen to their instruction. Listen to their guidance. If you have questions about decisions, talk to them. And I'm encouraging you to open the door and allow them to breathe into you and allow them to give you direction and guidance and provide them with obedience in the directions that they're asking you to go. 3 stories. They're all from my son, Justin. My son, Justin, sat at that drum set, not that drum set, but right up there, and he led one of the first praise and worship teams here at MGBC. Now, you have to understand, you don't know Justin, but Justin was into goth. You guys know what goth is? Do you know what that is? Okay, he had large plugs in his ears, spikes on his jacket, purple hair spiked up on top, big chains hanging off the side. And Justin wanted to lead the praise and worship team. He was the drummer here. Well, I talked to him, explained to him that that's not going to fly. It's not going to work because you need to set an example. You need to be this and this. Well, ultimately, finally, the church asked him to leave. This church asked him to leave. And so he left. He no longer came to church. He no longer came to youth. He no longer led the praise team. A few years later, Justin goes to college. He's living at home and commuting to Penn State, Altoona. I come home from work at the prison one night, and I see my wife is in tears. I said, Shelley, what's going on? What happened? She said, I can't take it anymore. Justin's threatening me. My son is threatening to beat up. Now, you have to understand here. Now, this is important. My wife is the closest human being that I will be near. She is the person that I will die for, okay? I understand I have children and I love them dearly, but she was before them. And so I'm going to hold her in high esteem. Second to God, she's right there. And I'm not going to have somebody in my home that threatens the very person that I love the most. And so what do? I sit with my son and I try to explain to him, these are the rules, this is what has to happen, this is how you must obey. I can't do that, Dad. I'm sorry. Then you need to leave, and I threw him out of the house. My son goes to the Penn State Altoona campus. He moves in some guys at the Penn State Altoona campus. Shortly after that, I come to find out that he was arrested because it was drunk driving. He had come to an intersection. He was under the influence of alcohol. Police pulled up behind him, arrested him. For 9 months now, he's got to pedal his bike from Penn State Altoona to his job at the mall and to the campus, the Penn State Altoona campus. Because he didn't follow the instructions. He didn't obey the rules. I've explained to him over as a parent, alcohol is going to ruin your life. It's going to destroy you. It does nothing good. It's going to only hurt. I'm telling you this because I love you. I want to protect you and I want you to prosper. But he's not prospering and he's not being protected because he refuses to obey what I'm asking him to do. So he has to pedal his bike back and forth to his job. That's not fun for 9 months because he lost his license. A couple years later, I think he's a senior at Penn State Altoona. Everybody's going to the beach, Dad, Ocean City, New Jersey. Everybody's going out there because when you work in the restaurants out there in the vacation season, you make a lot of money working in the restaurants. I can make 2 or 3 times the money working out there than I can here in Altoona. I don't think that's such a good idea, buddy. I really don't. Well, I think it's the right thing to do. I don't think that's a good idea. Well, okay, you make your choice. He goes out. Next thing you know, I'm over at Raystown Lake a Friday morning, over there with family. I get a call from my son. It's actually a Saturday morning. I got arrested last night, Dad. I had an open alcohol container, and I was drunk on the sidewalk. Police arrested me, and I'm in jail. Can you help me? What am I going to do, son? What do you want me to do? I mean, all of the instruction, don't do this, watch out for this, I'm trying to protect you, I'm trying to help you prosper, I'm telling you to obey, and you refuse to obey, you refuse to listen, you're going to make your own choices, your own decisions, and now you're sitting in a jail cell with 12 other guys, and you want me to help you. I don't think I can help you, son. You've made the decision. I think you're going to have to suffer the consequences. But unfortunately, the judge doesn't come in on Monday morning, so now Justin has to sit in prison until Monday morning when the judge comes and hears the case and then releases him. You getting the picture? Isn't it ironic that now he works in a prison? That's humorous. That's funny. You can go ahead and laugh. And Justin, if he were here, he would laugh as well. Because God was merciful and gracious to him. And we have a great relationship, he and I. God has worked through that. But listen, it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to make all those choices. You don't have to disobey. You don't have to choose the wrong pathway to go. Open the door. Listen to your parents. Obey them. I understand we're not perfect. I was a parent. I'm not a perfect parent either. But you got to open the door and have some dialogue with them. You got to listen to what they're telling you. Trust me, they know the ins and outs. They know the curves. They know where things turn and go bad. I tried to explain to my son, watch out for this. Don't do this. He just refused to obey and had to learn the hard way. They love you. The rules are set in place to protect and to help you prosper. Okay? Take God's word seriously. Take it seriously. Let me pray. Praise team, you can come on up while I'm praying. Father God, I just thank you for the attention that you've provided with these young adults, men and women here this evening. I just ask that you would provide a blessing upon them. Parenting is a difficult job. It's a struggle. But your word is clearly evident, Father, that you choose to work through the family. I pray that you provide the parents here and those that are not here with wisdom and clarity and guidance and patience and understanding. But I also pray that you would just help the students that are here to open the door to wisdom, to open the door to guidance, to open the door to hear what their parents have to say and make the right choices, Father. The choices can lead down so many dangerous directions. But your word is true. Your word is love to them. You desire for them to follow your instruction, to protect, but as well as that is to prosper, Father. We thank you and praise you for your word, and I just ask a blessing upon each one of the students here and their families this evening. We ask this in the precious name of your Son, Jesus Christ.